for committee reports, I'll open with the Committee of the Whole notes. So the Committee of the Whole met on June 13th to discuss the administration's concerns with the proposed charter amendments. Ms. Long opened the discussion by sharing a letter from her counterpart in the village of Indian Hill, who felt that the chain of command changes could lead to conflicts, particularly in the finance department. Her counterpart in Forest Park echoed these sentiments and felt it would not lead to good government. Our mayor and city administrator both felt that the changes as a whole would put them in a bad position. Of particular concern were changes in 7.02, which have the finance manager working directly with council on appropriations without mandated city administrator input. The city administrator is the person most familiar with the budgeting needs of the various city departments. Her name and the mayor's name are on many financial documents, so they want to be confident about the finance manager's work. Mr. Dewald stated that he doesn't want to see the council micromanage the city administrator. Council may not know what the various departments need. It's the city administrator's job to know this. Ms. Nichols echoed her previous comments about the changes to the balance of powers, that the changes would need a full-time mayor to work. She agreed with Mr. Dewald's comment. She stated that she would not vote for the amendments as currently written. Ms. Whitlisbach emphasized the importance that the charter amendments shouldn't target individuals in recent administrations and that they should stand alone for many years and administrations to come. Mr. Dewald stated that he felt this may have been a position that last year's Charter Review Commission came from. Ms. Whitlisbach gave an example of where council had requested something of a former finance manager and a former city administrator, directed her not to provide it. Ms. Long responded that it's her role to help the finance manager prioritize the many tasks on their plate, and that in the future, in such a situation, she would help the finance manager communicate a reasonable timeline for the response. Ms. Zorb asked that we come up with a compromise. Ms. O'Shea stated that she thought the commission had already done so. A show of hands determined that the majority of council members felt some rework was necessary before moving forward with the amendments. So I placed the draft ordinance into the Rules and Laws Committee.
Our charter in North College Hill is set up to be a strong city administrator, city manager form of government. City manager has a lot of powers under our charter, a lot of powers to operate the day-to-day and to impact the will of the mayor and the process of actually running the city. You know, if you go back to like ancient, kings and feudal system, it was like the hand of the king or the hand of the queen. They're the ones that run the kingdom, right? That's the way our charter was put together. The recommendations the Charter Commission made to you are recommendations that would drastically alter that theme of the government of the North College Hill. And in some ways, I think could paralyze our ability to get things done. And that's what I mentioned in my letters to you. And most importantly, the issue regarding the finance director reporting to council and not to the administrative, it's kind of a check and balance kind of a problem. The director, the Treasury in the United States government is part of the administrative executive function of government. If your finance director was reporting to you and only you, it would require many, many times for the person to come to council for a vote to get anything done, to pay bills, to appropriate monies, to do anything the finance director needs to do. And if it requires something by ordinance, and we haven't been doing that lately, unless there was a waiver of the 3 readings, it would be a month, 2 months, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. And I don't know if we've looked around lately. We haven't been real efficient at getting legislation through lately. It's going to come to committee, back and forth to committee. I think it would completely paralyze government. The city administrator not being an integral part of running the budget and coming up with the budget, the city administrators, I think I mentioned, and there's the one that has to know what the city needs and is constantly in contact with the directors. I mean, when Congress does a budget, who submits the budget first? The president submits the budget to Congress, because the president in our federal government system knows what the federal government needs to operate, submits it to Congress for then it to be debated and looked at and considered. It's an integral part of operating government that you'd be pulling out of the system. And then lastly, I think I don't know if this is by design or if it was done just because of some lack of precision in drafting, but there's some provisions in there regarding, it looks like, in my opinion, you can make a legal argument that every single time the city enters into any contract, it has to be competitively bid. And there should be a threshold. And most cities are looking to make that threshold higher, not lower, because of being able to try to get things done in a quick manner for their citizens. So Those are some specific things. And what I also told the committee of the whole is that if, you know, you got a tough decision to make on these things. And Mike, I've been through 4 charter reviews in the city of Harrison since I've been their law director for 20 years. And I think only one of the 4 times even after recommendations were made to council, did council choose to actually take that to the voters for a vote, because even though there may have been smaller minor changes that were worthwhile to make, it was, well, they're not really worth the significant investment we would need to clean this little word up here or make this little change here. And I think absent, you know, this might be debatable, but absent those things that I brought up to you in my letter to you of last month, if you're not going to make those big major changes, I would seriously consider whether or not even taking anything to the voters is even worthwhile, because you're probably looking, in all honesty, at least a $20,000 investment by the time you make copies, by the time you get postage. You're probably going to have to pay a company to do that for you, unless you were all going to come in here and stuff envelopes on bulk mails, which I've done it in my fraternity when I was in college. It's not fun. So you need to think about it, and thinking about long and hard, because this is an important decision that you're going to make on council. And my hope would be that I think bad government happens when it becomes reactionary to people or problems that are short-term problems or people in the past. And so I don't think, you know, you should always make your decisions based on the fact that, well, you didn't like the last city manager, or you didn't like the fact that the last city manager didn't let this happen, or so forth and so on. You should really think about what it would look like when it functions well, not when you have something that went awry and make major changes to your constitution. Because the reason why your charter is hard to change, it's intended to be that way. It's intended to be very cumbersome for you to make changes to that charter. Just like our United States Constitution is very difficult to amend. Not only do you have to get a supermajority in the Senate, then you got to go back to get states to ratify it individually before you can make an amendment. That's why in 200 and how many years now? 45, 46 years, we've only had 27 amendments. I think there's 28, but one repealed an existing one, right? Something like that. So it's difficult to do, and it's intended to be that way. So please consider that. I'm not telling you what to do or not do. I'm just telling you that what the Charter Review Commission gave you fundamentally alters government in North College Hill as you currently know it, in my opinion. And that's neither good nor bad. That's a decision for you to make. But I also know that the voters typically don't pay a lot of attention to those little nuances that I'm bringing up. So I think it's your job as their elected constituents that sit at that table to take that very seriously and determine what's in the best interest. And don't look at, well, we had a bad experience with that one person, because we shouldn't make decisions based on one person. We should make decisions based on what's good for the whole and good for the future. Renee, or I'm sorry, Shauna, do you have a question? I don't know if I answered it or didn't answer it, or.
You did answer it.
I did. Wow, a mind
well-
reader.
Well, in a roundabout way, you did. I'm going to have another one later because, anyway. But I do have another one.
Okay.
In the very last part of your letter, you gave us 2 options. You gave an option of sending out copies, and then you also gave in the alternative of putting it in the paper.
Right. You can do that, although I think you'll find out that that's really, really expensive.
Well, I was going to, I was, if I was
I mean,
gonna.
if you think about how long your charter is, publishing that in a readable way, I mean, you can't publish it in little tiny, you got to
Correct.
publish it in a way that's readable and accessible.
Sure.
And then you also have to deal with if someone, you know, and then I think the other question I would ask if I was on council would be, is that really how we want to inform our voters? Because does everybody get the paper now?
No.
You know, so
I'm just-
I think that's
I'm
the
just-
tough-
I'm
but,
just-
but my job is to tell you what the charter says. And
Correct.
So that's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying.
that's what I.
But I
that's-
actually think that would be more expensive, not less expensive.
Right. Well, I was going to
Yeah.
get a quote because I would like to know for personal reasons. But I mean, I was just making sure that since you wrote it, that was an alternative
I mean,
way
you're talking
of-
about a 24, 25-page document.
Well, it was one-sided, so I didn't know if I don't know how the paper works. So I was going to call and ask. So
Yeah, but even if you reduce that to like a quarter of each page, you know, a one-page ad's like $30,000 in the
yeah,
paper.
I don't know. That's why I was just making sure that was
Yeah,
a,
I mean,
since you put it there
yeah,
that was a
yeah.
viable option. So okay, thank you.